Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his government's response to the attack by a Palestinian gunman on Friday evening that killed 7 people will be strong, swift and precise. Here's our Middle East analyst, Sebastian Usher.
As he was convening a security cabinet meeting, Mr. Netanyahu said his government was not looking for escalation, but was prepared for any scenario. The past 3 days have certainly injected a new and dangerous momentum into the cycle of violence. The wounding of a father and son by a 13-year-old Palestinian boy underscored this, while Palestinians have condemned a deadly Israeli raid into the occupied West Bank on Thursday as a massacre. Israeli media reports say possible measures under discussion by the Security Cabinet are a law to deport families of those who carry out attacks and the loosening of restrictions on Israelis carrying guns.
The former NATO general, who'll be the next Czech president, has described the election outcome as a victory for the values of truth, dignity, respect and humility. In a speech to cheering supporters, Petr Pavel said it was time to return those values to politics. The United Nations Human Rights Chief has urged Venezuela to release all opposition activists arbitrarily detained in the past few years. Volker Turk also said told the government to take decisive action to stop torture. Leonardo Rocha reports.
At the end of a 2-day visit, Mr. Turk said he found a fractured society which needed to address human rights issues. Mr. Turk spoke to dozens of human rights activists, members of the Catholic Church and government officials. He said President Nicolás Maduro had promised him that allegations of torture would be investigated and those responsible punished. Human rights groups say more than 250 people remain in prison for opposing the socialist government, which has held power in Venezuela for more than 2 decades.
Differing accounts have emerged of a Ukrainian strike on a hospital in an occupied part of the eastern Luhansk region. Moscow says the hospital in the village of Novoaida was hit with HIMARS rockets, killing 14 people and injuring 24 others. Ukraine's local governor said the attack killed dozens of Russian troops. Danny Eberhard reports.
Video footage published in Russian state media shows the shattered end of a low-rise building. It hasn't been independently verified, but a photo posted by the local Ukrainian governor shows what appears to be the same building. Moscow says the facility was being used to treat civilians and soldiers and that medical personnel were among the casualties. It called the strike a war crime. Ukraine's military has not responded. Novoaida is within range of Ukrainian troops mounting a counter-offensive near the Russian-held town of Kremina as they try to cut Russian supply lines from the north.
World News from the BBC. The former US President Donald Trump has begun his campaign for re-election in 2024. Delivering the keynote speech at the New Hampshire Republican Party's annual meeting, Mr. Trump accused the Biden administration of running America into the ground and declared he was more angry and more committed than ever. He attacked Mr. Biden's handling of a number of issues, including immigration and the Ukraine war, which he claimed he could have prevented.
My personality kept us out of war. And I told you before, would have never happened with Russia, would have never gone in, Putin would have never, ever gone in. And even now, I could solve that in 24 hours. It's so horrible what happened. I mean, those cities are demolished now. The people, I'll bet you have millions. It could be millions of people. How can you, they bomb a city to the ground.
An earthquake with a magnitude of up to 5.9 has struck northwest Iran, destroying a number of houses and other buildings in the city of Khoy. Rescue teams have been sent to the site in Iran's western Azerbaijan province. An emergency official said it was snowing in some of the affected areas and there were also some power cuts. There have been no immediate reports of casualties. In Portugal, thousands of teachers and other school staff have been demonstrating in Lisbon in a long-running dispute over pay and careers. Protesters massed outside the Education Ministry, which has hosted fruitless talks in recent weeks before marching to the palace of Portugal's president. Unions have called on him to intervene in the dispute, which is causing huge disruption in schools. Rival unions stage regional and national strikes on different days. The main opposition candidate in next month's presidential election in Nigeria has joined calls to push back next week's deadline for people to hand in higher value banknotes. Nigeria's central bank has decreed that the notes for 1,000, 500 and 200 naira will cease to be legal tender on Tuesday. BBC News.